Hello and welcome back to another episode of Young and Gifted. You are here with DESU Radio. My name is Anaya Balco.
And my name is Majaya Foster.
And today we have the pleasure of interviewing
Eric Dickens, Professor Dickens, now an adjunct professor at Delaware State University.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Dickens. I'm so glad that you were able to, take time out of your busy schedule to sit down and talk with us. So for our first question, we would like to know because I know that you are a Del State alum, and you also mentioned that you were part of the radio station. So what was the radio station like when you attended Del State?
So when I attended Delaware State University, I was more television, but we partnered with the radio station in so many different capacities. So I was the president of the Mass Comm Society. So a lot of times we co-sponsor events together. But I graduated in 2006. My freshman year was 2002, and the radio shows were on air, meaning like on your television in your dorm room. And they kind of ran post, I would say 5 p.m. to almost midnight. So it was like super active. So the ETV was like the place to be, kind of like if you were in television or if you were in radio, everybody would come here like after hours just to like chill out.
Oh wow, that's I would have never known that because I'd be in and out So
No, the ETV was like the chill spot.
Oh
like
wow.
After the cafeteria, like everybody would come to the ETV.
What you learn something every day. That's crazy.
No, literally. So, like, you had a different kind of experience growing up as a student here at Delaware State University, you would say, right?
Yeah. So, the campus had just, like, prior to me coming to Del State, the campus was, like, I wouldn't say freshly done over, but it was like, back before I got here, you could drive down the center of the campus. It was like a street. So, they had paved the campus completely, and that's what made me want to come to Delaware State University, because a lot of HBCUs were going through, like, reconstruction with, like, their campus, and Del State was kind of finished, and they were just, like, they had just built, like, the new administration building. So it was clean. It was like a clean campus. I'm from Philadelphia, so it was close to home. Right. And it just was a different type of vibe, meaning, like, we didn't have a lot of rules. You know what I mean? Like, wasn't like really a lot of social media. So we had a lot of fun. You know what I mean? Nothing was recorded. Like I said, my junior year, we had just got Facebook. So, you know what I mean? People were still using flip phones, and like the Nextel was like a big thing, like with the speaker phone. Like, so we didn't really have like a lot of technology, which made us live in the moment. So.
Right. So I would consider you a successful DSU alumni. So my next question for you is, what advice would you give to current students, especially as a professor, who are aspiring filmmakers about breaking into today's industry and making their impact?
I would say intern as much as possible. I think one of the biggest tasks that I had to overcome is that I'm from Philadelphia. So my freshman year, I had got an internship at 106 and Park, which was like a big time show in New York. And I almost didn't take it because I had to commute from Philadelphia by New Jersey Transit to get to the city. And it was a lot. And I was working. I wanted to work because I wanted to get a car to come back sophomore year to return for the fall semester. And like my professor at the time, Professor Eric Dotson, was like, "You'll never have this opportunity again in life. So a car can wait. You should take this internship." And internship changed my life. At that time, BET was renting a couple of floors in the CBS building, which is on like 57th and 10th. And I saw everybody. That summer was a huge summer. It was the summer of 2003. Beyonce drops her debut album, Crazy in Love. Monica dropped So Gone. Ashanti dropped her second album. Ja Rule had like 1,000 hits on like the Billboard. I think 50 Cent just debuted. I've met so many people, and like, if you think about it, the star power to that magnitude hasn't been like that for almost 2 decades. Like, people come out with music, but they're not going 7 times platinum. And I got an opportunity to work on that specific show. So I would say if you get an internship and it's in another city, just figure out a way to make it happen, because when you build your resume, the more internships that you have on your resume, it allows you to not only get the experience to figure out what you don't want to do, but a lot of job recruiters or like hiring managers, they look at that and they kind of they pick who they want, you know what I mean, as an entry-level position based upon like the exposure you've had in the industry.
Makes sense.
And that makes sense because, like, I know that we are told a lot, like, make sure that you prioritize internships, even from, like, when we first get in here. I know even though it might be a little difficult when you are in your freshman year, but that's good to know that the internships do tend to, like, pan out and actually work, because especially with everything going on with social media, things tend to be more like, okay, well, how many followers do you have? Or, like, what is your platform like, rather than like, okay, well, what experience do you have? So I'm glad glad to know that did work out for you. So now also just following graduation, how did you actually integrate fully into the field of media?
I moved, so I was already familiar with New York, and it's like I always say it's like a renaissance period in New York between like 2002 and like 2012. At that time, everybody who was blogging, this was like the end of the years of magazines, like print magazines. If you were working in news journalism and wanted to be like in a number one market, you moved to New York. Everybody who wanted to do television and film moved to LA. Everybody who wanted to be like in politics was DC. So it was places that you can literally go. You wanted to do music because music shifted from New York to Atlanta. Go to Atlanta. So in New York, everybody lived in Harlem and everybody lived in Brooklyn. So you could be broke. You were having the time of your life being broke because everybody was broke. And it was like a huge HBCU presence. Like everybody from Howard, Hampton was living in New York. So when you would go to like apply for jobs, you could literally find somebody with your same skin color working at their job. You know what I mean? And you didn't kind of like feel like you were on an island by yourself. So it was really easy to integrate into New York because I was familiar with the landscape, and I had already had like 4 internships. Like I interned at ESPN. I interned for a soap opera called Guiding Light. I was at BET. I interned in a post-production facility, just doing editing and things of that nature to figure out what I didn't want to do once I got into my job market. I bought myself time. I went to the new school, which is they have a grad program in New York. It's in Greenwich Village. I went there for 2 years. I did a 2-year program, and literally, I would say a month before I graduated, I ended up getting a job at Turner Broadcasting, and I kind of just like shifted into that, and I was like able to like fund my lifestyle in New York, and I stayed in New York for like 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So sometimes you gotta be where you're at to get the opportunity. Like if I don't know if I would have got that job if my address would have said Philadelphia, right?
Right.
But I was able to strategically utilize my refund checks from grad school to pay my rent. You know what I mean? While I was in grad school, and that's kind of how I was able to figure things out.
So, as somebody who has worked with a variety of different production companies and have been around, would you say predominantly Black people for most of your life?
No. So it was weird. I grew up in Philadelphia, so public school, is predominantly Black. Like I went to Catholic school in Philadelphia, all Black, and then I went to a performing arts high school called Frank Learning Center, and it was mixed. It was white, it was Asian, and it was a huge Cambodian population. So high school, it kind of gave me like a realistic view on how the world was going to be. But I always wanted to go to a historically Black college because I saw the different world coming up. And then you had school days. So those were like the two forms of media that we saw where we can identify. And so going to a mixed high school, when you go to HBCU, you're never going to be around that many people, you know what I mean, in your life like that. You may have be fortunate to work for a network, you know what I mean, like BET or something, but BET still has a parent. You know what I mean? Paramount. They're a white, you know what I mean? Predominantly Caucasian entity.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I felt like the when I was able to transition effortlessly, and then I went to a grad school that was super mixed. So transition into an environment that was integrated was easy. Like, you know what I mean? So was that the question?
No. But it's going into the question that I have. Would you suggest that there is a difference between predominantly Black films productions versus predominantly white film productions? I know it was probably different back then, but when you were growing up and going through that process, was there a difference that you noticed?
I tell people to write the stories that you want to write, or write stories that you don't feel like you see. Like, you know what I mean? But I don't think it hurts to, like, I was able to take writing programs at the new school with a Caucasian professor, alumni from the university, and then just like a diverse class. Like the things that you put in the script, like the foundation of your script is universal, so it's not color. You know what I mean? And so when I tend to write my scripts, I don't write my scripts with color. Like I don't have to, like, if I'm writing a script about a specific urban neighborhood, I can speak to that because I'm Black, right? But my script can live in any genre. Like if I wanted to go to the country, or, you know what I mean? It's just, all you doing is changing the dialogue to fit that culture.
Right.
So, but it's like if you write from an honest place. So if you write from a place where people can feel, that's universal. You know what I mean? So it doesn't hurt, but I wouldn't tell somebody to shy away from, like, a lot of my movies have a full Black cast. You know what I mean? So if that's a story that I want to tell from my perspective, then that's just my story, right?
Right.
And I love that you say that you just write from like a perspective, and that you just write from a point of like, this is a story that you want to tell. And just hearing that and hearing how you like excelled to that point. It's just sounded like all of your ducks have been in the row in like a row since the beginning. But I know that it wasn't always. I mean, like I assume that it wasn't always that easy.
Mm-hmm.
So were there any obstacles that you faced, like when you were trying to break into the field of media, or even once you got there?
Yeah, so my first internship was at BET. It was highly competitive. Like back in the day, you didn't like now you have the privilege of getting paid to intern. We didn't get paid, so I had to work at Blockbuster 4 days a week to intern 2 days a week to go to New York, and I had 1 day to rest, which was the Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I would get to New York, all the rest of the people were interning 3 days a week, so I had to go overboard to show that I was on par with them. The only thing that really helped me, one, is because I was from Philadelphia, so one of the lead producers was from Philly, so they immediately took me under their wing. Because I wasn't there the extra day, I didn't really get caught up in like a lot of like the high school antics that kind of
Right.
come in the workplace.
Right.
So when I would come in, everybody was just cool with me because I wasn't in the gossip.
Right.
Because they lived in New York. I couldn't
Right.
afford to live in New York.
Right.
So they were hanging with each other on the weekends. They were bonding, but it became you bonding with people that you're hanging with, that you're working with.
Right.
And that kind of became too much. And then I would just
Exactly.
pop up like, hey, how's everybody going?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was just like, oh, okay. So I was able to navigate from that way. But career-wise, it's a journey. Like it was some things that I did that I never thought I would be doing, but it helped me when I had to do my own thing. Like when you can deal with a lot of pressure and you're starting to do independent work, because I will always have a 9 to 5 in the industry, and I will always do my own projects, whether I was doing a short film, whether I was doing a webisode series, and then that led me to being able to sell my own projects to networks, right? But I was able to deal with so much just being active on campus at Del State, being active on internships, always wanting to speak when I was presenting a group project and doing things that when I had to lead people myself, I was kind of good because I practiced so much. You know what I mean? So sometimes the stuff that you hate doing, it kind of aids you, you know what I mean, throughout your career.
Right.
Okay. And like going off of what you just said, it seems like you were just moving from place to place trying to find, good networking and good people to talk to and learn from. So the next question is, what has networking done for you? And was there a specific connection that opened a specific door for you that changed everything? I know you said BT. But
Networking is great. I always tell people, never put your eggs in one basket. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, especially when you're graduating, you're just trying to land that one job. And then a lot of times, especially in this economy, the budget might get cut. They might push that job into the next quarter, and then it kind of mentally messes up with your brain. For instance, like I had, when I sold my first script, it happened very fast. I went to a film festival. I met the VP of acquisitions for a network. They liked my idea. They had me commission me to write a script. They optioned it. When the option is kind of like they buy your script, but if they don't make it, they buy the license to your script. If they don't make it within a year or 2 years, you get your license back, like your copyright. And they loved my idea. They were going to make it. COVID hit. And it was just like up in the air whether this movie was going to get made. So I done already told everybody I sold my first script, and then we just sitting. It might have sat on the shelf for maybe almost 2 years, and then they made it. I got paid. I was happy that it came out, but I felt like I was mentally exhausted. You know what I mean? Because once it came out, the thrill was gone. Like, you know what I mean? But landing that placement for that script, it helped me get meetings to other networks, right? So yeah, I definitely think that and networking is big because it allows you to have a plan B, a plan C, where you can reach out to other people. And if like even when I'm pitching now, I might reach out to a network, and if they pass, I'm already reaching out to like 5 other networks, and that's because I meet people going to film festivals, going to networking events, traveling. You know, if I see somebody editing, I might say, "Oh, what are you editing?" Like I'm very like a sociable person, so those are like the things that network can kind of help you. It gives you like a different avenue as opposed to just walking down a one-way street trying to figure out your life.
Right. And speaking of like the scripts that you were talking about that you sold, and then COVID happened, so then it was like, I did see that you were able to direct the project High Risk. So I wanted to know, what was that like?
High Risk was personal. So me and my wife, we were trying to we weren't trying. We ended up just getting pregnant, and I would say 16 weeks in her pregnancy, she had a miscarriage. So it was kind of therapeutic because you're not really prepared for that. Like there are some
Right.
people who may have issues getting pregnant, and so many
Right.
things that could be like a roadblock. But for us, she just got pregnant, and then it was like I felt like we had just like told our parents and like our close immediate family, and you know how people do like the big reveal on social media,
Right.
and I would say we found out literally a week before we was about to post on social media, and it was kind of devastating.
Right.
So myself and another Del State alumni, she had somebody in her family that had issues getting pregnant.
Right.
So we kind of came together because we were both in New York, and like through COVID, we kind of like cultivated like a documentary. So we reached out to like a nurse practitioner, a doctor that lived in the tri-state area, a couple of people in the DMV that had like they had tragic stories about like their pregnancies. We had one person that had twins and lost the twin. Like it was so many different people, and you find out like that it's just a community. You know what I mean? That people that have experienced different things.
Right.
But going from scripted to non-scripted is completely different because you're always like you're writing a script, but because laws change, the script changes.
Right.
So like if you do Roe versus Wade,
Right.
meaning like a woman can't get like an abortion at a specific time, or some states that the father of the child has to sign off on abortion and be notified and things of that nature.
Right.
That changes the story if the law passes. So now you have to always be in touch with like what's going on in the news and like the laws and the laws and bills that are getting passed. So that was kind of different. Just working with somebody to cultivate the story, working with the editor. You got to transcribe literally everything that somebody says to take sound bites out to piece the story together. So it's a little bit different.
Wow. And, I can only imagine, like, having that actually be something that you went through versus, like, you kind of, like, knowing something about, like, a situation that's going on and you're writing from that perspective. So I wanted to know, because also you were talking about how you write from the perspective of what you know, with students that are trying to break out into the film industry and that are majoring in film right now, like what are some pieces of advice that you would give to them?
Right for now. Like, it's funny because I always watch on social media and I see people your generation like, oh, we're going to go to a 90s party and throw a 90s party. You're like, you don't even know what the 90s is. You know what I mean? And I was just like, when we were growing up, a hit movie for us was House Party. House Party was now. Juice was now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it just gave us different aspects of how people lived in different cities. Like being from Philly on television, we were fascinated with everything that went on in New York City. So when we would watch like a Juice or a House Party, or we would watch like an Above the Rim or a Menace to Society, that all was happening now. They were displaying music that we were listening to. The fashion was now. So when you look at it 30 years from now, you see your generation being broadcast at that in real time.
Right.
And a lot of times you don't see that now. Like I don't see like a movie that kind of broke through where I think the last movie that we saw that was like that for my generation might have been like ATL.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And we
Right.
were like, oh, that's how they doing it in Atlanta? Oh, this is dope. Like, you know what I mean? But you don't really see that now. They had a movie called Dope that was in LA, and I thought that was a great coming of age story, but it's not practiced consistently. Like, you know what I mean? Just one of them days might be like,
Right. Yeah.
you know what I mean? But
Right.
it wasn't. I guess you could say, just one of them days might be the closest thing to what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I agree because, like, when you think about, like, the movies that are supposed to be set in today's, like, time frame, I feel like everything kind of, like, people got caught in, like, the 2020, like, aspect or, like, the aesthetic of life. So, like, all the outfits, when you see it in the movies, it gives, like, what we were wearing in 2020, like, what they're saying and everything. And so when I watch it, I'm like, that's not how I talk. That's not even, like, that's not how I'm dressed right now. So I get what you're saying with the whole, making sure that you're living in the now. Because I think also we try to think of, like, different time periods.
Right.
And then you think, like, you see the things on TikTok where it's like, oh, I wish I was born in the 90s. I wish I was born in the 70s. I love being born now because I love a selfie. So I can't be in all the time frame. So I agree with what you're saying, and I understand that.
And I find it interesting and inspiring that a lot of your written work comes from your experiences in real life. And so you kind of like just open my eyes to media and film. And when I watch a movie, now I'm going to start thinking like maybe somebody actually went through that or know somebody that went through that situation and then put it on screen for, the world to see. So, just to end it off, is there any exciting projects that you're currently working on?
So we just shot a Christmas movie. Literally, we wrapped in February. It was a big deal. We shot it in New York. We shot it in the wintertime, which is a running joke because a lot of times when you see holiday movies, it's always like in some hot place.
Right.
They're wearing jackets and they're sweating because
Yes.
like, it's not Christmas. You can clearly tell. Or a lot of movies are filmed in Canada and Toronto.
Right.
So, and they say it's New York City, and you're like, I don't see nothing, or Atlanta, right? So we actually got to shoot in Brooklyn, so we're super excited about that project. It's actually, my editor hit me up today, so it should be, I think our first cut should be done by the end of this week.
Oh, okay. Amazing.
But yeah, it's good because this is my first debut directing project, like for scripted. So I've done like I've directed a show, like a series for 4 or 5 episodes, and then I've directed a documentary. So this is my first like feature film that I wrote and directed. So
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Stay tuned, guys.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
So, with that being said, with that being said, we are bringing the interview to a close. I just want to say thank you so much for sitting with us, taking the time to explain everything and just go through everything so thoroughly. So this is Anaya and
Majaya.
And
Eric Dickens, Professor Dickens.
signing off. Bye.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, perfect.
That was good.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. We really appreciate that.